What up, y'all? What up? What up? I am Lou. In today's video, we're going to be talking about how to create a Microsoft Power Automate job that's going to connect to the SharePoint site, download the files, and drop it to an S3 bucket. But the way we're going to do it is because there's not a connector in Power Automate that is able to connect directly to an S3 bucket. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to be dropping the files into a AWS Transfer service. What we're going to be using, AWS Transfer service, which is an Sftp site, and the backend is an S3 bucket. So it's an Sftp site, but because the way AWS family transfer family service works, the backend is an S3 bucket. So as files get dropped to the Sftp site, they drop into an S3 bucket. So that's how we're going to do it. I'm going to walk you through the steps, what we need to do. Also, if you are interested and want to see how to set up AWS Transfer Service, check out my other video, AWS Transfer Family. That video will walk you through step by step exactly what you need to do from a from a policies setup, from a role setup, from a SSH key. It'll walk you through all those steps. Hey guys, before we get started, if you could give me a like, give me a follow, man, I appreciate it, man. I really do. Let's get started, guys. So what we're going to end up doing, again, we're going to be connecting to SharePoint, and we're going to be taking the files from a specific folder, SharePoint, and we're going to drop those files to Sftp, right? So just so you understand the flow, we're moving files from SharePoint to Sftp. But keep in mind, though, behind the scenes of the Sftp, what's really happening, it's dropping it to an S3 bucket, right? And that's key because this is an action that I have got a lot of requests from people is how do we move files over from SharePoint to an S3 bucket? So I have a video that shows you how to do that using Python, okay? But if you want to use a non-programmatic way to do it, then this is going to be the way to do it, what I'm about to show you. So let's go ahead, get started. As you can see, in the SharePoint site that I have, it's called Development. And then I have, under my documents, I have a folder called Data 2022, right? So Documents, Data 2022. Then I have 3 files in here, right? It's a list of customers for January, February, and March, right? So they're CSV files. They're in this folder, all right? So we know what we're pulling. So now let's kind of go through. Am I connected? Let me see. Where's my AWS? Oops, hold on. I think I'm connected to the wrong. Let me open it up in the other browser. Yep, here it goes. So let's go to the S3 bucket, just kind of show you. We're going to be dropping it to this bucket, which is called Sftp. I am Lou. Let me move it over. So I have 2 folders in here. So again, if you watch the previous video that I made, which is what is AWS family, transfer family, we created pretty much a bucket that's used as an Sftp site, and then I created 2 different folders, one for each customer. I called one of my customers Apple, the other customer Google, which means when they connect to the Sftp, they only have access to what they see inside their folder. So right now there's 0 files in there. Then of course there's a few files in here, but that's all they see. That's all they have access to. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to be dropping the files from SharePoint over to the Apple folder, right? So this is where it's going to be dropping into our S3 bucket. All right, so now that we kind of reviewed what we're trying to do, let's go ahead and do it now. Let's get this done. So go to Power Automate. By all means, that's what we're going to be using. Again, this is a Microsoft service. If you have a Microsoft Office 365 account, you have this by default, so it's already included, and you're good to go. There are some premium features that potentially you got to pay for, but everything that we're doing here, none of it's premium, so it's all included. You shouldn't have to pay for anything extra, right? You can start using it right out the box. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to use any of these templates. I'm going to create a new one from scratch. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's create, it would be, let's do schedule Cloudflow. I'm going to skip for now. We're going to schedule it, but I'm going to skip it for now. So what I'm going to do is let me find the schedule connector. So these are all connectors, right? Whether you're trying to connect to YouTube, trying to connect to Outlook, whatever it is, you may be able to find it in here. But what we're looking for, we're going to be dealing with 3 connectors, really. We're dealing with a schedule connector, which is how often we want it to run. We're going to be dealing with a SharePoint connector. And then we're going to be dealing with a Sftp connector. So those are 3 connectors. So let's kind of go through the process. But the first one is schedule. So I'm going to click on schedule, click on it again. And then I'm going to start configuring my schedule. Let me make this a bit bigger, kind of small. So I'm going to start making it, I'm going to start scheduling my scheduler. So in this case, I'm going to have it run once a week. Want it to run once. I want it to be, I'm Central Time, so I'm gonna have it run under Central Time. Start. So see how this is the format that it wants it in. So that's the format that we're gonna have to put it in. So let's say we want this to start on 2022-06-02 T for time. I want this to run 11 p.m. So it's gonna be 2300. 2300. On these days, I want it to run only, let's say on Friday. At these hours. Well, my bad. Okay. So let me kind of step back. So this start time that we have here, it's really when you want this to start in general. I could put that. I could put an earlier date. I could say start yesterday, June 1st. Right? We're in June 2nd, but June 1st, which is fine. Which means any going forward, if it meets the criteria, which it happens to be Friday, it happens to be at a specific hour. So in my case, I want it to be 2300 is the hour that I want it to start. Minutes is going to be 0. Again, you can specify the minutes. In this case, if you want it to run multiple times, like more than once, let's say you wanted to run at 11 p.m. because I'm Central, then you want it to run at 11:30. You would do something like that. But in our case, we're only going to have it run once, which is at 11. As you can tell, it tells us down here, run at 2300, right? If I would have put 30, let's see. See, now it shows 2 times. 2300 and 2330, which is 11, 11:30. I only want it to run once, 11. Cool. So now that we're done with this setup, I'm going to hit next step. The next step is going to be SharePoint. So let's look at our SharePoint connectors. Now, under the SharePoint list of connectors, you have like many different type of SharePoint connectors, right? Add attachments. You could check in file, check out file, copy, so on. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be looking for the Get Files connector. properties only. This is the one that I'm using. Okay, there it goes. Boom. So I don't know if you noticed how it was kind of trying to whenever you click on the SharePoint connector, keep in mind I'm logged in under my account. I am Lou, right? So if I go to my SharePoint site, which again it's under my I am Lou account, it automatically logs you in. So and then of course it will show you what you have access to. So in my case, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pick the site. I have access to my development site that I created under my I am Lou SharePoint site development. Next, I'm gonna select the library name, which is gonna be documents. Again, if I come over here, it's under documents. That's what I'm selecting over here. And then I'm gonna specify which folder I want to go into. So again, if I go to SharePoint, it's going to be under the Data 2022 folder. So now let's click on the little folder icon. And I'm going to go under Shared Documents, Data 2022. So that's what I'm going to click on. Now, if you know it, you can just type it in like this, right? After a while, you'll get familiar with it, so it becomes easier. But if not, just search for it. That's fine. And then this, if you want to get subfolders and so on. In this case, we're not. I mean, it's defaulted to true to get it, but that's fine. I don't have any subfolders or nothing, so it's good the way it is. Show advance. Nope, I don't need to modify none of this stuff. So we're good. I mean, you could do like top count, order by, filter, so on and so on. We're not going to those details. There may be a need in your case, but in our case, we're not. There's no need for us to do that. So now that we're done with this, I'm going to click on next. All right. So the next thing that we're going to have to do, and keep in mind the way this works is our SharePoint connector is saying get files. Files is mini files. It could be 1, it could be 10, it could be 100, right? It just depends. Now, in order to handle when you're dealing with mini files, you need to have there's gonna be an iteration process, and you're gonna have to apply some kind of action to each item. So in this case, we're gonna be uploading each item to our Sftp site. Now, in order to do that, we're going to use the apply to each, which is there we go. The apply to each. There it goes. As under controller. So I'm going to select. I need to select something. Ultimately, this is what's being imported in from here, which is under get files. Is going to be my value. So list of items. So keep in mind, get files is giving it back a list of mini files because it's a list of mini files. What I'm doing here is I'm using the values because I want to get back one of those values, like one of the files, one at a time. And then we're going to do an action to do some kind of action for each value. So that's what I'm doing here. Then I'm going to add another action. The next action is going to be get file. Oops, this is going to be SharePoint. All right, so under SharePoint, I'm going to use the get file. Where is it at? What is it called? Get file context. Did I pass it already? I think it's up here. Let me type that in. Get file. There it goes. Get file. Hold on, I just saw it right there. It goes. Get file context. So this is what we're going to be using. So let me go ahead and click it. Again, we're going to specify our site. So the development site. And then the file identifier. So in this case, if I click on it and we go to the right, we'll see all the properties. Again, this is related to the get files properties, which is up here. So there's a list of different properties that we could get. The one that we're looking for is, what is it, identifier? So let me type it in. Identifier, value that can be used in file related actions by selecting a file. So this is what we're going to be using. Let's see. That could stay as is. That's fine. Okay, so now that we have this, well, pretty much what we're doing here, we're saying, hey, we're getting the context of the file now, right? So we're connecting to SharePoint, we're connecting to the right site, we're connecting to the right folder. Now once we do our iteration, where we're kind of going through iterating the list of files and starting with one file at a time, now we're grabbing the context of each file. So that's kind of what we're doing here. The next thing is, now we're going to take that context and we're going to want to upload it to an Sftp site, which again, it's really going to be dropping it to an S3 bucket behind the scenes. So let me type in Sftp. Don't use this guy over here, this Sftp. This is depreciated already. It's no longer, I don't think you can even use it, to be honest with you. If I click on it, yep, there it goes. So you cannot, you don't see nothing because it's not being utilized anymore. So you click on the one that says Sftp SSH. And we're gonna do this guy, create file Sftp SSH. Alright, so this is where we're gonna have to enter in a few things. And let me go back to where's my AWS at? Thought I had it open over here. There it goes. So let me go to AWS Transfer family. So this is our server that's running right now, our Sftp server. Again, if you want to know how to set this up, as you could tell, I created users here. If you ever need to add more users, you will add it in this section. But if you need help on setting it up, go watch the video. I have a video that walks you step by step on how to set this up, so that'll help you out. So our endpoint is our URL that we're going to be using to connect to. You could add a custom host name. I haven't set it up. If you do, it'll be something like sftp dot, myapp.com, right, or something like, whatever your domain is. But that's normally what it would be, something similar. Nevertheless, I'm gonna type this or paste it under the host server name. The connection name is, just for reference, I'm gonna call this AWS Transfer SFTP, right? So that's what I want to call it. So my name, if I go back to it, I have two. Now we said that we're gonna drop stuff into, we're gonna move files into the Apple folder, right? Which is, it's empty. So this is our name. I'm gonna go ahead and copy the name. Password stays blank because we're using SSH. There is no password in this case. SSH private key. Okay. So again, if you need help with that, look at the video that I have that relates to AWS Transfer. I will show you how to generate SSH keys. In this case, it needs to be, keep in mind, whenever it's asking for SSH private keys, I don't think it mentions it here. It doesn't. It needs to be open SSH format. It cannot be the PuTTY format. It has to be open SSH. It has to be, man. So just keep that in mind. So I already have some keys here. This is the Apple, the public and private. I'm going to open this up. Let's open this up, Sublime Text. And I'm going to copy everything exactly the way it is. Just copy as is. And I'm going to paste that in here under the private key. I did not add a paraphrase onto my private key. But if you did generate a paraphrase, then of course type it in here. Port number will be 22. Disable SSH host key validation. We could disable this. It's fine for what we're trying to do. It should be fine. I don't have nothing here is blank. Root folder pass. So this could stay blank. I think we could leave it on blank. We'll find out, but I think so. So this will be kind of an example. Let me see. If I go back to the S3 bucket. So if I come back to the S3 bucket, as you could tell, when we connect to this folder, there's no subfolders in here. But let's assume that you did, right? Let's assume that we had. Let's create a new folder, and we're gonna call this inbound. And it's inbound because that's where we want the client to put all the inbound files, and then we could potentially have an outbound if we're trying to, give the client files back. So I'm gonna create this. Cool. All right. So since we created one called inbound, we're gonna put this in here. Inbound. Gonna be our root folder pass. Or our root folder pass is really this, but I have a subfolder, so I wanted to drop it into the inbound. Okay, now that we have this connected, I'm going to hit create. And if it's able to connect successfully, we'll create. If not, we'll get an error message up here. Oh, there it goes. Let's see. Let's click on the folder. It should show me the inbound folder. No items. It did not show me the inbound folder. Folder path required. Let's see, what do we do? Oh, my bad. So the folder path is going to be the /. The file name is going to be file name with extension. You want it with extension because, again, if you're dealing with CSV, Excel, you want it to add that extension as well. And then to finish it off, it's going to be file context. Show advanced, that's fine. Get all metadata. So now I'm going to hit save. Let's see, it's saving. Boom, it's good. Okay. So as you could tell, we have three. I guess we got 4 steps, but nevertheless, one connector for the schedule. That's step 1. Step 2 is getting the file properties. Again, in this case, getting all the files that belong to that folder or subfolders as well. And then in this piece, this is where, since we're iterating over the list of files, this is really a list, we're applying an action to each file, right? In this case, we're getting the context from each file. And then this step here does a few things. It connects to the Sftp site, and then it's ultimately dropping generating a file name, but the file name that it's generating, it's really the file name that comes in the file. You could manually type something in here, or you could add some logic where you like concatenate, right, some kind of expression to like append to the file name. We're not going to do that, but you could do stuff like that if you want. I'm just taking the file exactly the way it is, dropping it in. Then of course you have your file context here. That's it. We saved it. Everything seems to work. So I'm going to go back. Your flow is ready to go. Turn on. It turns on and will run when it's triggered. Got it. So let's see. We're going to run this manually. So I'm going to run it by hand. Again, we have it on schedule. So by default, it will run on schedule. But I want to run it, manually to make sure that it works. So let's run it and we'll see if we have any errors. So let's run flow. Done. We'll see down here where it would tell us the duration, right? You can refresh. 7 seconds running. It may take about a minute. Again, it doesn't take long. It just depends on how many files you have and the size and all that stuff. So far no errors. That's good. It's running. So far it's running. 29 seconds. Doing good. 34 seconds. Come on, it's doing good. Still running. There it goes. So that's good. 38 seconds. Succeeded. Let's go and confirm. So now if I take a look at what we have in S3 bucket, I'm going to hit refresh. Boom. So see how it dropped everything in the main folder? And I think I know why, and we could fix that in a minute. But it did work though. It did drop the file that you can see. It moved. It did its job. It moved these files that we have here. So data 2022, these files, and it dropped it over here. Now I didn't delete these files, but all means. But if that's something that you want to do, you could add another step after the fact to ultimately drop those files. Again, I'm not going to do this in this exercise, but you could add another connector that will literally delete the files if you don't want them to exist here. But I'm just trying to show you the concept of how we moved files from SharePoint to an S3 bucket without using code, and doing this through Microsoft Power Automate. And the way we were able to accomplish this is through setting up an AWS Transfer service, which is an Sftp site, and there's a connector. Of course, if we go back to Power Automate, where as you can see, we're using two connectors here, SharePoint and Sftp. So there's a connector for Sftp, and again, AWS Transfer service is really an S3 bucket behind the scenes. It's literally doing the same thing, right? Dropping it to S3 bucket, which is what we want it to do here. But let's make a change. I want it to drop into the inbound folder, not the main folder. So in order to do that, we're going to go to Get Files under Folder Paths. Let's see if it shows. Because it's not really, nope, it's not showing which, but let's try it out. We're going to do / inbound. Right, so that's what we're going to do, / inbound. I don't want to. Let's hit save. Let's make sure that it saves. Did it save? Yep, there it goes. So now I'm going to run it again. So let's run. Okay, so again, it should take about 40 seconds, pretty much. Now, what I'm expecting here is for files to, there it goes. It's already dropping. Boom. Yep, that worked. So initially, whenever I put inbound under the root folder, that's really wasn't the place to put it at. It's after you save, so that could stay blank. And after you save it, then you put it to your folder section. And then, of course, we could see files are starting to drop in here. Boom, all three are here. Again, that's exactly what we wanted to do. So that's awesome. Then, of course, this should be done. Yep, it's done. 31 seconds. Again, guys, not hard at all. Pretty straightforward to set up. You do have to set up AWS Transfer service first, which is not that challenging, to be honest with you. It wasn't as straightforward initially, but it honestly, again, just follow the steps in my video. It'll make it way easier. You can literally do exactly what I did step by step to get it set up. This wasn't too bad. This is a non-programmatic way. Again, I have a video that shows you how to move file from SharePoint to an S3 bucket using Python. But if you want to do it a non-programmatic way, this is the way to do it. Exactly what I just did right now. This is your option to do it. I am going to have another continuous video that's part of this process, and ultimately it's going to be our complete pipeline, which what we're going to be ultimately what it's going to end up doing is, again, taking files from SharePoint, uploading to Sftp, which happens to be an S3 bucket behind the scenes. Then the next step is we're going to create AWS glue jobs to take those files, those CSV files, and load them to Redshift. That's going to be the next video that I'm going to make that's going to show steps on what to do there. Hopefully this helps, guys. Again, give me a like, give me a follow, man. I appreciate all the support and everything, and talk to you later.